So ZeroBrush has some awesome new options. We can get to them if we're in texture paint mode right here. We have the options layout here. If I press space to bring up my brushes, and I'll just select this draw brush here. Here we have the basic paint through button, which most of you are familiar with. So if I paint here and we look back, it didn't go through. However, if we click the paint through button and then we paint that same area, it comes through. So we can do that. Then this button turns off the shading of our object, so we can see what our entire material looks like from any angle. And then of course we have our render preview button, which if we press it will immediately preview render the entire screen. But as you see, there's a little message here, Control B, set preview border, which we can do that. So we'll just press Control B, drag it over an area that we actually want it to preview render, and then press that, and we'll just see that area, whether we're in Blender Render or in Cycles. And then when we click to turn it off, it very nicely hides that render preview border for us and then uses the last one that we use when we turn it back on. So if we're in Cycles mode, which we can either press this big Cycles button up here, or we can turn that on in the options. And then of course that same options menu is available by pressing Q in any mode you're in. If we press Use Cycles, we'll see these buttons change just a bit. To the right of the Paint Through button, we have our Quick Lights button. If I press my Preview Render button, we'll see what this looks like without the Quick Lights. And then if I turn the Quick Lights on, we have the Quick Lights, which gives us a black background and generates a quick light rig. So I'll turn the Render Preview button off and hop out of Cycles. So as I said, this options menu is available in any mode we're in. So if we click the object mode button, and now we're in object mode, we can get to this options menu by pressing Q. And so let's just go through real quickly what all of these things do. So the first button in our options menu is just use Cycles, which we've done that a bunch. It just switches us into Cycles and a regular Blender render. Of course, this is the preferred way. Going through ZeroBrush, switching between Cycles and Blender render will always give you the best results, so do it that way. Then we have the Use Fast Mode button, which if you're a ZeroBrush user, you're familiar with. But it's got some advanced features. The new Fast Mode takes into account even more kinds of modes and options and does a lot of background stuff to speed everything up as much as possible while you're sculpting, painting, or testing things. So if you let the mouse hover over any of these options, you can get a little bit of a description to see what they do. So if you forget what something does, just let the mouse hover over it. And so when we let the mouse hover over texture and sculpt, you see it says load brushes for sculpt and texture paint modes instead of just the mode you're using. So by default, if we click on our texture paint button and we click on brush here and we load one of our brushes, say this mud one here. So by default, when we load a brush, that brush will only be available for the mode you're in. So if we press space to view all of our brushes, we see the earth mud flat there. But if I switch over to sculpt mode and press space, that brush will not be available. So that brush will be available in vertex paint mode, as the brush menu by pressing space now works for vertex paint and weight paint modes, as well as in the image editor, but it won't be for sculpt. So to load the same brush for sculpt, or even a set of brushes, we can either press options here or press Q to get the same menu and select texture and sculpt, and we'll see that's check marked there. So this time if I click on brush and select, say, this cement pool here, and I'll put this on that top layer so we can actually see it. And then we switch over to sculpt mode. When we press space, we'll see we have that same cement pool brush ready to go. With the disable shadows button, if you have any lamps in your scene that use shadows, this will cycle through all of them and turn all of their shadows off, so that A, it increases performance while you're painting if you've got a really big scene or something and things are slowing down. B, you may just not want to be able to see shadows while you're painting.